Welcome back to another episode of the Thinking CAAP. I'm Amanda Hoprich, joined by my co-host.
Hello, Beck Moore, CEO here at CAAP. We're excited to be back and talking with two amazing CEOs, executive directors from within the Community Action Network. Rachelle Abbott, working at STEP, serving, and I'm going to make sure, just like I check on every single time, I want to make sure I'm gut checking this, Lycoming County.
Yep, Lycoming, Clinton, and then part of Tioga.
I knew it. I was really testing you. But thank you so much for being here. And Megan Bair, we're welcoming you back, serving CSO, serving Northumberland, Columbia, and Montour counties. Thank you both for being here. We're here today to talk a little bit about your leadership journey. So Amanda, you want to kick us off with some questions and jump into it?
I'd love to. I think earlier I referred to Rachelle as the most interesting woman in the world. So this conversation is exciting.
No pressure.
No pressure.
No pressure.
Okay. It's okay. It's all right. I love radio. We're fine.
We're going to start with an easy question. And I'll start with you, Rachelle, is what really inspired you to pursue a career in nonprofit leadership, particularly in human services?
Yeah, so this wasn't the journey I expected to be on at all. And so the fact that I'm here is kind of incredible. So I'm actually a certified planner. And as a certified planner, like all the fun planning stuff, like the city planning, building development, real estate development, park planning, urban design, all that kind of stuff is really kind of where I started. And then really got into the social aspect of planning. And so was working at Lycoming County, doing lead planning, community development, economic development work, and was really asked to come on to STEP as their first lead planner. And so it was a bit of a leap, a little bit of a different stretch. Luckily, I had quite a bit of experience in social planning because I did some classes and actually did my master's in planning at the University of Toronto, which is very heavy in social planning, but definitely is quite a bit different than what you'd expect from a planner. So did not expect to be here. Happy I am. It's definitely a world where when you first get into it, you don't expect half the things that are actually the reality of boots on the ground work, helping the individuals that need all of the services that are offered today.
So true.
That's amazing.
I think I only know one nonprofit leader who actually intended to work in nonprofit. And I know a lot of nonprofit leaders. That's probably not true. We've just never talked about it, but I'm going to start asking people more frequently because I only really know one person, unless Megan totally myth-busts this and tells me, yes, I was the plan. So then I'll say two.
Are you going to myth-bust?
I am. Yeah.
So
I
same
love
question
when
for you,
a plan
Megan.
comes together.
So same question for you, Megan.
Yeah. So I always knew I wanted to work in human services. I certainly never had a goal of working in community action, but I worked for a couple of different nonprofits. My first job was at a homeless shelter in New York City and just really fell in love with serving people and what are considered the hardest to serve people. So when I moved back to this area, I got connected to a nonprofit and then eventually ended up at CSO and just have really seen the evolution of the organization, worked in all the departments, a lot of different positions, just really seeing all aspects of the organization and really getting to see how every position from the front desk to the CEO supports families in need.
And I think that's one of the things that I really appreciate about both of you is that approach and really understanding what each aspect and layer of your organization does in order to think about, the decisions that you're making and how it impacts each of those roles. So I want to make sure to acknowledge that because I know that about both of you. And it's something I feel very passionately about as well. I think it is important in what creates a really excellent leader. So I just want to say that out loud to both of you. If you can remind us and for our listeners a little bit, Megan, first you and then Rachelle, how long you've been at your organization and then how long you've been serving as the executive director.
So I started at CSO 25 years ago, and I've been in the role of executive director. It'll be 3 years this June.
Awesome.
Yeah. And for me, so I've been at STEP almost 15 years and in the role of executive director, president and CEO about a month-ish.
Ooh, yes, we have a fresh.
Yes. So I am fresh to this role and position. This is actually the first day I'm in my office. So as you can see, it's pretty plain because it's the first day I'm here.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for taking time in your first month to join us. We appreciate you. So I'm curious because I know having worked with both of you, you also happen to serve on the CAAP board as two amazing leaders to help guide the association work that we do, that you are replacing two, relatively long-term CEOs, executive directors in both of your positions. And so I think one of the things that CAAP does is we host a cohort call on a bi-monthly basis for new executive directors. And when we say new, what that really means is those that are stepping into their leadership journey in this space for the first time, because it's different, right, than serving as a COO or in different roles. There's a whole new set of pressures. And so we want to make sure to create a safe place for our new executives to talk and share. And so really looking for advice for those folks and for others that are stepping into a new executive director role, but particularly within the framework of you're stepping in after someone has been there for a long time. And within community action, that happens all of the time, right? We have executive directors who have been in their spots for 40 plus years in some instances. So can you tell us a little bit about just things that are important, have been important for you in how you've started to look at your leadership experience there, and what advice you would give to those folks who are in the same spot as you? Let's go with you, Rachelle, first, and then we'll go to Megan.
So I'll start. So I think that the big pieces is like, even though you may have been there for, 25 years, 15 years, even 10 years, there's likely things that you just don't know. Right. And so the position of president and CEO is always holding some kind of space and some kind of, pieces of the puzzle that you probably weren't aware of. And I think that that is kind of one of the biggest things, is really go into it knowing that you're going to learn through the process and kind of understanding the big picture, that there are definitely areas where you're going to want to better understand. So I think that for me has been something that I've kind of leaned into through this, is like, I know I don't know everything. I'm still meeting with every member of the team. I'm still meeting with all the staff, because of the fact that it is very different in this role. And I'm not taking that for granted. The fact that I have been here for so long, it's just that things can be different. And, definitely learning things throughout the process that didn't expect, things even for efficiencies and those kind of things, which are just going to make us a better organization.
Yeah, I love that. I appreciate that very much. What about you, Megan?
I think for me, the biggest thing I learned very quickly was to ask why a lot. Why do we do it that way? Why has it been done that way? Just really to understand, because when you're coming in a position and replacing a long-term leader, there's a lot of just historical knowledge there. And so the question is always, are we doing it the way we have to, or is there flexibility in looking at new ways and new innovations? But also being respectful of past leadership and making sure that you're walking that line where you're really respecting our history and, our reputation within the community, which is very strong and it has been, really to, help to build on the strength of the past, but looking forward to the future and really just walking that fine line.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that. I serve on a board where there was a long-term executive director in place, and it's new leadership now. And one of the things that I hear a lot is this sort of reaction when there's turnover, particularly after long-term leadership leaves. That's the other thing I just want to lift up for folks who are listening, is that just because there's turnover, and I'm not saying that there is or has been in either of your organizations, this is just commentary for me personally, that it means that something's wrong. But the thing is, right, there's just naturally going to be people that are nervous about change. They're going to opt out, right, of that change because they've, for whatever reason. And so I think it's an important thing here, as a fairly new executive director myself here at CAAP, that's okay, right? There is a season and time for all things, and folks are going to leave, folks are going to cycle through, and that's all right. And just because you do see turnover doesn't mean there's anything wrong with the new leadership. It just means there's new leadership, and that's certainly okay.
Well, I give all three of you lots of credit, because I always say I never want to be number one. I like to be the professional Dwight Schrute, professional number two. What kind of things have you implemented, if you don't mind me asking, for a little bit of self-care in your new role? What little escapes, and this is also for you, Beck, having just self-admitted, still, you're like year three. Well, yes, you and Megan are like year three. What has changed in some of, keeping and maintaining that balance? Because when you're in that role, it creeps into your life, right? You are on all the time. What are some things that you've implemented? And we'll start with Beck, in your self-care journey and changes since you've been in the leadership role.
So I would point to a couple different things. I think number one, find the people that give you energy, right? And find a way to spend more time with them. And so I'll give you, an example. I got the chance to travel with Rachelle recently to a national conference, which was awesome because I genuinely enjoy spending time with her. She just happens to serve on my board, which is also fantastic. But being able to have that downtime and just really speak frankly and honestly about the things that you're hearing and experiencing, and just know that you're in the work together, right? And that you're supporting each other. So it's still work time, but it doesn't feel as difficult. And we all have people that we supervise, right, who are energy givers and are energy suckers. And so I think figuring out how to balance your day and giving yourself sort of those pump up moments is really important. And then secondly, I am someone who, I have serious ADHD. Thank God I'm medicated. My poor wife if I wasn't. But I really need to find time that I can turn my brain off. And there's very few things that do that for me. And so during the summer in particular, and or when there are nice days, making sure that I really take advantage of that day, go fishing, ride my motorcycle, which surprises everybody every time I say it. Yes, I ride a Harley.
The beard doesn't make it a surprise anymore.
That's fair. That's fair. But finding that downtime where I really can just turn off all of the things that I'm thinking about and strategizing about is super, super critical. And I think the other thing that I am starting to appreciate right now in particular that I'm doing again is reading and trying to find things that bring me inspiration, because we're all surrounded by so much in this space as federally funded organizations who are navigating a new atmosphere. It's hard to not feel overwhelmed. And so I went to the library this weekend with my kiddos and checked out some books to try to bring back some inspiration to some great thinkers that I'm hoping, inspire me to continue keeping on.
Love that. What about you, Megan? What have you done for yourself now that you're, in that top leadership role and finding balance in your life?
Yeah, I really appreciate this question because definitely in this role, you're always on, where I'm always getting text messages, emails, weekends, evenings. It doesn't stop. And so I appreciate that. And I've definitely had to be more intentional about making sure that I'm taking care of myself. So a couple of things that I've done are very similar to Beck's. I've been definitely much more intentional about scheduling time out of the office and also telling my team when I'm off, I'm out. And also I hate saying that even now, but it also empowers them to know when they're out of the office, they're not expecting to hear from me either. And so just really giving each other permission to respect time out of the office is huge, because there's nothing worse than having a day, a vacation day, and having to constantly be checking your cell phone to make sure you're not missing something back at the office. So we've really implemented that culture shift at CSO. When you're out, you're out. And the expectation is if someone really, truly needs you, we'll reach out to you. So scheduling time out, protecting time out of the office, and then also just making sure that, I'm doing things that I love to, spending time with my family, doing things that are fun for me, just giving myself that downtime to refresh and relax. And also, we have a phenomenal team of leaders locally, other directors that I know I can reach out to if I'm really struggling or really feeling burnt out on an issue. Just knowing that support is there is just really incredible too.
I want to make sure to say this because it's, when your kid says it to you, it hits differently. But my son said to me not that long ago, he's like, well, Daddy, what's more important, me or your phone? I'm like, oh, okay, I hear you. Okay, I got it. I'm going to put this down and focus. And that's hard for me because when I hear the bing, so I've also turned off my notifications on a lot of things. Like when I'm done, I'm trying to really be diligent about that. And that is very difficult.
I was going to say, and I think maybe it wasn't you, Beck, but someone on the CAAP team had said when they go on vacation, they delete Outlook and Teams.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, I swear it was you, Beck. And I was like, that's such a great idea. Just delete it off your phone because then you don't get the bings and the visceral reaction because it could be a meme someone said.
It's triggering.
And yeah, it's extremely triggering. But what a great sentiment, Megan. And Rachelle, if we haven't checked all the boxes, is there anything that you have found that has really worked for you on your leadership journey now being in that top responsibility role?
You could say it. It's spending time with me. I know.
It is. I love our time together. Here. It is true. I do also want to say, if somebody made me delete Outlook or Teams off my phone, I would literally have a panic attack and I could not handle it at all. So I am always on. I definitely am more respectful of making sure my staff has their own time than I am of myself, to be very honest. But I think one of the values and what gives me energy is the fact that we are part of a network, right? And so we all do have each other's backs and we can all really engage in a way. And, I think it's, being part of the brain trust and being able to have those conversations and just those are all things that lift people up as leaders, right? Because everybody is going through the same thing. So, while last week was tough, it probably would have been tougher if we were all in our own place. So
It's one of the things that very early on I so appreciated about joining CAAP and not coming from the world of human services. I worked in membership organizations, so I didn't understand the work yet. I had never heard of community action before I came here, and so I've had to, try to climb very quickly up a very steep learning mountain alongside of you all. And you all have been so helpful in informing me. But early on, that time together at conferences and just getting kind of informal downtime and talking. Recently, our board got together, and a lot of that, we got to the business of what we needed to. But then we just spent a little bit of downtime just kind of debriefing and talking through some things. And I know that everyone said that when they left, we're really not looking forward to going because it was travel, but it filled everybody's cup in a way that they didn't even know that they needed. And so sometimes just being, in the same space as other executive leadership is very, very helpful and energy giving for sure.
Yes, totally.
Got to fill that cup up, literally and figuratively.
It's true. It's true. So I think we have a couple more questions. We want to make sure to keep our episode on time here, and I'm terrible about doing that, which I continue to say. So it's me holding myself accountable. I want to make sure to ask this question of both of you is, what has really been one of your biggest challenges in your leadership journey? And not necessarily just as an executive director, but as a leader in other capacities, because I know that you've both had different leadership experiences in other roles. What's that one thing that you're just like, if only this, and I'm not, you don't have to disclose any names, change the names to protect the innocent, whatever you want to do, but anything in particular, it could be a feeling, it could be a moment, it could be an example.
So I think as a relatively younger woman leader, there's way more, even with like exterior pressure, right? Like put on like, really, you're the CEO, or like you're the chief operations officer, and I'm like, yeah, I am. And so, like because of those comments, you have to, for me, I'm just like, I'll show them, like I'll show you what I can prove from value. But like for some, that can be really challenging, right? And for some people, that's why they can't get up to those leadership roles, is because it's a tough call. And so I can definitely see that. I kind of take it with stride and like to show, yeah, I got this. Well, so I think that's been one of the biggest challenges. And it still continues. So it's definitely real.
Yeah, I think this for particularly those of you who are stepping into your leadership journey earlier on in life. So having been a COO, I think in my very early 30s and looking very young, as a matter of fact, I recently met an executive director's mom. She happened to be traveling with this executive director, and now she refers to me as the little boy that this particular executive director works with. How's that little boy doing? She says all the time. Anyway, but I think because of that, a lot of times I hear newer leaders and they tend to say, well, I've done this and I've done that, right, when they're showing up in that space, because it's our reaction to, I need to prove that I belong in this room. And I want to urge anyone who is in that space to think about really like it's about showing. I can tell you all the things that I've done, but that just feels right. Like I'm trying to prove something. And I'm someone who very much believes in proving yourself by actions, not by just telling me about all the things you've done. And so I think that 100%. I love that answer, Rachelle, because I think that is so important. We all have some form of imposter syndrome, right? There's always something internal that kind of is this argument with ourselves. I think particularly for the really good leaders who are thoughtful, vulnerable. And so just remember, everybody, it's about what you do.
100%. It's all about action.
Yep. Megan, what about you?
So I'm going to take a little bit of a different approach and say, I think my challenge has oftentimes been myself. I really like to control things. And so,
me too, friend.
Yeah. And so, over the years, just really learning, when to step up and when to step back, and really just giving the team space to do what they do so well. And knowing that not every little detail has to be exactly the way I would have it done has been something that I, learned early in my leadership career, is to give people space to do the jobs that you hired them to do and to trust them. But also then to build in that sense of security. If we mess up, it's okay. We'll fix it and start over. So really getting out of the way of the team and letting them do what they do best.
Yeah. Scope of control is super important. Amanda has heard me say this, all the different events that we have planned together over the years, right? What has been within the scope of our control? What do we have the capacity to actually control? Let's reflect on those things rather than reflecting on the things that I don't have any control over, right? The tech booth, the sound messing up or whatever it might be. And so you got to acknowledge that.
Which I think why it's so important to surround yourself with the folks on your team that are in some ways much better than you are, right? Like that do
1000%.
things way better than you because they're the people that you're going to be able to trust, right? Like, we have staff members who are absolutely incredible doing things that like are, necessary and needed. And, that is, I think, the key to building that good team is understanding the strengths of a team and the individuals within the team, and then how they relate to like what you do best, and then how you can really kind of bring them up alongside and really kind of showcase their success.
Yeah, 1000%. Yes, yes, yes. #truth, however you want to say it. Amen. Preach.
Yep.
Yes. I think at CAAP, we live that message, and our whole team goes through Strengths Finder. We map out all the team strengths, and it just like from the top to the bottom in every project, we think about, even if this isn't someone's necessarily core responsibility, they can be a leader because this is their strength on this project or this event. And I always give, Beck does this like no other, is creating that safe space to fail in your leadership journey. Having that safe place that sometimes, putting yourself out there seems intimidating, or getting over that next challenge or barrier in a way that, you have the whole team to kind of rally around. And it's an amazing feeling to have.
I think a perfect example of that is think about the very first time you ever had to present to a board of directors,
Yes.
And most of us have to do that for the first time in a big way. And so if you can give people that opportunity in a small way, that makes it far less overwhelming when they do get to sit in the seat. And so that 5 minutes or so, or those moments where they get to present to a funder or whatever, I think is always something that I've had leaders that I talked about this on a prior episode, that I've always had leaders who have done that for me. And it's something that I've always felt very passionately about trying to give back to my team. So I think we have time for maybe one more question, Amanda. Keep me honest here.
Yes.
I want to make sure to ask, is there anything in particular that either one of you want to lift up that you think is just really important around this topic of leadership and things that you hold, close to your heart in this space? Could be a resource, could be a book, could be a podcast like the Thinking CAAP, for instance, or it could be something else, a group of professionals that you work with. But anything in particular that has just been something you want to make sure to share?
Yeah, I can take this one first. So for me, one of the things I really tried to hone in on at CSO is culture building, and really strengthening that within the organization. Right before I transitioned into the leadership role, I was lucky enough to get connected with Rachelle to a leadership training course that lasted about 6 months. So it really carried me through the early part of becoming CEO. And that was facilitated by Work Wisdom. And Sarah from Work Wisdom has just been such a great resource for me personally, and just really helping to build the culture at CSO. And then also share it with the staff in a way that really resonates with them, so they can see the value and the importance of what we're trying to do here as a team, working together, and how it really relates to our mission and enables us to do our jobs more effectively. So I would say, looking at building workplace culture, what starts by really assessing where you're starting from, and then looking at where you want to go, and just really coming up with a strong way to communicate that with staff has been something that I've really been focusing in on, and Work Wisdom is great. But also, I will say, Beck, you have been someone I've called throughout my first 3 years here, and I know I really appreciate that we have that support within the system. Rachelle has been someone I can reach out to. So just really don't be afraid to ask for help if you're not sure or stuck. It's okay to say, hey, I need some help with this, and to get feedback and ideas from other people.
Yeah, always my pleasure. And I think it's something that is great about our network of leaders. People are always willing to help each other, for sure.
Yeah, I think that really sets us apart, and which really does, we're only as great as the least of us. And so we have to build each other up. And how we build each other up is even through, having the conversation and being able to answer those phone calls and having those conversations, right? And whether it's something small or something big, like how do I replicate a program that's doing really successful? I mean, that's really kind of helping and leaning into, helping that other organization be successful. So a little known fact about me. Here's another little known fact. One of my first jobs was helping to operate a leadership development center. And I know, right? Who knew?
That tells me so many. You know what? Things just a whole bunch of puzzle pieces just clicked into place for me. Go ahead. I'm listening.
You're like, yep. And I think as part of that team, our biggest thing was culture, right? Positive organizational culture. It's about like the little tiny skills that you have and about basically like an addition, right? So each time you add a new skill, you're building your own kind of leadership, pot. And so it's like the continual piece. But leadership also takes time to build, but also takes the time to continue, right? You need those professional credits like continuing for leadership, because it's not like it just, once you become a leader, it just stops, right? Because the evolution of leadership changes so dramatically that has to be something that you kind of continually to build into your life. And so I think that is something for sure that was a big focus there and something that is focused now. It's like, how do you have that continual leadership development? And definitely want to echo Megan in terms of work wisdom is amazing. We work with Sarah a lot, and she does great work both on an individual level as well as on the group level within our team. And so I think that those are, all great things, but definitely think about leadership as like, we talk about it as a journey, but as a journey, you have to keep adding, right? You have to like not be stale. You have to be kind of thoughtful in what the next step looks like.
Well, I think to that end, and I appreciate Work Wisdom's approach to this. And one of my executive coach was Deborah Vereen, who I also mentioned on a prior episode. She was my executive coach, and she looks at this very similarly. Is that, to your point, both of your points, right? We all grow, and we have to evaluate ourselves. And until we can be the best for our team, right, we have to know who we are. We have to understand our skill set, because I can't hire somebody who's going to match me, right, and complement my skills. To your point earlier, right, about building up a team, I have to know what I do really well and what I don't do really well, and be honest about that so that I can find the people who complement me. Yes. And then I have to grow and acknowledge, yes, I have made mistakes, and here's the things that I know I need to evolve in myself to really be the best that I can be. So I know we're coming up on time. Amanda, do you have any other questions for either one of our amazing guests?
Yes, I'm just going to ask you all, for our listeners, what would be your top book, podcast, or we'll say blog for them to check out on leadership? So Beck, what would be your top book, podcast, or blog?
I shared this on on the episode that I think it's episode 6 that Heather Holloway, one of my other co-hosts, interviewed me, is that Chip and Dan Heath, 1,000,000%, they are two of my favorite authors. I'm not really a fan of business books. I can't get into them. I can't read them. And even if I listen to a podcast, it doesn't stick in my brain. But they really take simple approaches to things. And one of the books that they have is Switch, which has sort of been one of my Bibles that I like to describe about how to change when change is hard. It has been so helpful for me. And then Allison Levine, who wrote On the Edge, first U.S. women climbing expedition up Everest. And her whole concept is about leadership within really hard environments, really tumultuous environments. That's
because she curses a lot too.
She also curses a lot. And I also, which I have really maintained a good language state on all of our podcasts thus far. One day I will break that, I'm sure. But I really love that in context, because I would argue that hard environments, difficult environments is always happening within nonprofits. And so they've always been two people that I've always really appreciated, or three people that I've always really appreciated. And so those are mine. And of course, the Thinking CAAP, because, we have some amazing people that we're talking to.
Megan, what would you like to leave our listeners to check out for their leadership journey?
Yeah, the book I have most recently read on leadership is Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek, which really it's great. Yeah, it covers everything that we spoke about today. So I'd highly recommend it.
That is a great one. And Rachelle, so now everyone get your pens out, round out your reading list. Rachelle, what would your recommendation to our listeners be?
Yeah, so I think at this, I've been a bit obsessed with Adam Grant as of late, and just read all of his things. So it doesn't matter what book of his, just pick it up and read it. And I also really like the Behavioralist podcast that Work Wisdom does. I mean, it is, the perfect snippet of information, really kind of building that leadership muscle within that, 20-minute or half-hour podcast. So I would highly recommend that podcast, as well as the Thinking CAAP, of course.
I appreciate that. And I'm not even paying you to say it. Well, thank you. Yeah, thank you all for the time today. Go ahead, Amanda, close us out.
I just appreciate you all being here. Thank you to our listeners. And remember, if you have any questions that you'd like to propose to the Thinking CAAP, email us at info@thecaap.org. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being a part of this episode of the Thinking CAAP. Check the show notes for resources and links to other episodes. And don't forget to subscribe and follow to be notified when new episodes are released. If you have any community action questions you'd like Beck or one of our local experts to answer in a future episode, please email your questions about community action to info@thecaap.org. Subject line, Thinking CAAP.